This episode of the Long Run Podcast is sponsored by Skechers. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special long run show. My name's Chris Ford, and with me today is the man who broke sub 4 in the marathon. And we're going to come on to Simon in just a second. Let me get the intro done. So if you're listening to this for the first time as a podcast, thank you very much for taking this award-winning podcast out on your run. This episode is sponsored by Skechers. Go over to skechers.co.uk and grab all your shoes, your kit, everything you need. So head over to skechers.co.uk. Big shout out to them for sponsoring this episode. So, like I said, this episode is all about breaking sub 4 in the marathon. Now, why are we doing this special version of this show with Simon? Well, I think it's well documented, his attempts at breaking sub 4. We've had him on, and it was one of our most popular episodes where we discussed hitting the wall. We'll come on to that as well in just a sec. So I thought it was good after talking so openly about his failures, which I still don't think were failures, but failures if he was trying to get this sub 4. But I thought it was only right that we got him back on after he smashed the living daylights out of Chicago. So how are you, Simon? All right?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Mr. Ratings himself. It's a shame it's not live because I think the viewers would actually like to have you on to talk about your ratings. Maybe that's another show we could do.
What a rating special.
Yeah, like a Christmas rating special. You could rate. This is a good idea. So just let us know, write in, use the website, say contact.com or something like that. And write in whether you want to hear from Simon a special Christmas ratings podcast. I think that'd actually be quite funny, actually.
Thing is, it might upset a few people.
Might upset Cambridge.
I can't comment on that.
Well, he's not allowed to comment. All I'd say is they've changed the course. Leave it there. Interestingly, and we'll come on to this as well, both of our sort of name tags. So if you're listening to this as a podcast, we're able to name ourselves. So usually I have something cowboy related on there, and whoever comes on, we have like admin or Speaker, whatever, or Hobbit for Hayden. We thought it would be truly, well, honest, open, transparent to have on there. I've got faster than Speaker. And so, what have you got on yours?
I think it's also faster than Speaker.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is quite interesting. So, yeah. So, if you want to go over to, I know Toby loves people to follow him on Strava. So
and comment.
And comment. So, if you go over to Toby Frost on Strava and have a look at his marathon time and then go over to Simon's, you'll see quite a difference, won't you, really? It's quite, well, let's put it out there, really, and we'll let the viewers work out one for themselves. So, you may be watching this, which is awesome, on YouTube. Thanks very much for tuning in. We'll put this up as a premiere on Friday for when this normally comes out. So we're live on a Monday and a Friday. Monday's 8 o'clock, and we just hang out and talk, well, nonsense, really. And then Friday, we talk, like, do a proper show. So, and that's at 7 o'clock UK time. So make sure you do join us or try and join us live. But anyway, let's jump into this sub 4 quest. So I think it is the sort of holy grail for the everyday runners. I think you've got sub 2 hour half marathon and a sub 4 marathon. Seems to be, and I don't know why, sort of holy grail for everyday runners. So why did you have it in your mind that you wanted to break sub 4, Si?
I think, like you say, really, I don't know, it's sort of like you say, it's where you want to try and get to, I think. Do you know what I mean? A lot of everyday runners feel like if they've achieved sub 4, I think they really have achieved, not that running a marathon isn't, but you've really achieved a big goal there, because it is not an easy task, as I well know.
It's bloody hard. I mean, yeah. I think it's the natural thing to do, maybe after you've done that sub. And again, I don't know why sub 2 half marathon. I'm not sure of the significance why it's not like a sub 2 hour 15. I don't know. I suppose because of the round numbers, right? I guess
it's got to be the round number. That's all
weird,
it can be.
Isn't it? Why everyone's like obsessed with this sub 4. Anyway, it is a thing. People do, like, I don't know, train for years, Simon included, to try and break this psychological barrier and this sort of get this holy grail for the everyday runner. So we're going to talk about what's happened in the past and what you did differently to achieve the sub 4, because then I think
Yeah.
at least we can add some value to the listeners and viewers. So, long story short, where was you at in terms of pre-Chicago with your marathon journey? How many have you done? What times were you hitting? And
I think so. I think I've done 5 marathons in total. Each one technically has been quicker, slightly, but I don't know, maybe on paper, I thought with my half marathon time, I should have been able to get the sub
which
4.
is
What, my half marathon time?
mm-hmm.
1:39, I think.
Yeah,
1:30.
I thought it was 1:38, but yeah, about that, isn't it?
1:38. It's under 1:40 anyway.
Yeah.
But on paper, you'd like to think that it should be achievable.
And
but
on your watch.
Yeah. But for some reason,
What did you actually? I'm going to tell you. I'm going to cut right over the top here. I'm going to do a special. What was? And I'm going fast forward because we're looking back. But what was your watch, your Garmin, say to you the week of Chicago? Before I forget.
Oh, it was what, race predictor?
Yeah.
Oh, about 3. It was about 3:40.
Hero. Right. Sorry, I went off. Right. So carry on.
About
So
3:40.
You've done 5 marathons. Half time was suggested you should go sub 4. Then what happened?
Well, basically, done the first couple of them. Obviously, they were learning. Edinburgh was a bit of a disaster for most people, you included. But then did Amsterdam.
Brilliant.
Had the best training you could probably ask for. And then on the day, had nothing, basically. Well, I didn't have nothing, but just got to 16 miles and it just, like you say, hit the wall, fell off the face of the earth, really. It just didn't happen. But I don't know, I wasn't too worried about it, really. I just sort of got on with it because I thought it's going to happen eventually, but when was it going to happen?
Then you did London.
Then did London. Once again, had a fairly good training block. I'm not making excuses. I don't think it was the greatest day weather-wise, but it wasn't hot. Do you know what I mean? But it tipped down from the start to the end. I was soaked from the start to the end. Once again, got to about, I would say, I think it was about 18 miles, and then from 18 to 21, it was just like I wanted the floor to swallow me up. It was awful.
Did you want to lay down?
No, I didn't need to lay down this time. But then, weirdly enough, once I got to about 22 miles, I seemed to then be okay. Well, not okay, but it wasn't as bad. Do you know what I mean? And when I got to the last mile, I seemed like I could have carried on running. But anyway, finished that. I think it was 4:01. Literally 4:01.
I remember we was all sitting there going, did he, didn't he, didn't he, didn't he, didn't he, didn't he? And the official time came through.
But the thing was as well, I think I ran the first half of that marathon in like an hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah, you ran it with us. We kept losing you a fraction, and then we got sort of easing back. But we was running at 3:45 pace.
Yeah.
So 1:52, you should have gone through.
It was about that, yeah.
Because I was
not
running,
much.
Yeah, I kept pushing us on a bit. If you remember rightly, I was like sort of dipping to 8, and you were like, no, let's stay back here. So we was, and then I obviously went on at 13. So yeah, you was well on, and you weren't struggling at all.
No, I wasn't struggling. I don't know. Maybe I don't know whether it was just nerves got the best of me. I don't know. Could be anything. I'm not too sure, really. Could have happened. Do you know what I mean?
So fast forward, Chicago, you get in the ballot, right?
Yeah.
You then look at your training. I mean, we don't change a hell of a lot, but how did your training look for Chicago? So talk the viewers and listeners through a week of your training for Chicago.
So it was pretty much the same, other than what I did decide to do was, obviously we had before Chicago, I did Ride 100, didn't I? Now
Absolute I was waste of time.
To believe it or not, I don't mind riding a bike, and I didn't do too bad.
Terrible. Yeah, tell everyone what your time was in Ride 100. I was impressed.
5:20.
Yeah, and you stopped for about 20 minutes.
But anyway, so after that, I thought, right, I wanted to carry on doing the bike riding a little bit, but so I decided to drop one of my runs in the week and do a bike ride, and I did that pretty much up and from the start up until about week, must have been about week 12, I would say. So basically, like I'd on a Monday, I'd go out, I'd go and do a run, say 6 miles. Tuesday would be 6 miles at club. Wednesday, I was not running, I was doing a bike ride. Then Thursdays, I was running,
What sort
resting
of distance
Fridays. What, each day?
on a Thursday? What would you? Because that was your sort of medium distance.
Medium, yeah. It depended. It was anywhere between 6. It could have been 10 miles. Do you know? It was anywhere depended. Do you know? It all depended. Resting on Friday and then doing a long run on a Saturday, which we did this time we did the laps, didn't we, of Harton. So I was doing a lot of 3 miles easy, say about 9:30 per mile, and then 3 miles goal, so around about the 8:30 per mile. And I did it this time. I did a lot. I actually only did one 20-mile run for Chicago.
Okay.
I did a lot of 18-mile runs.
Interesting.
And I did a couple of 16s, but I would say the majority of them runs was 18-mile runs. So I was finishing up with like a weekly average of about between 34 to 36 miles, but with a 20-mile bike ride in there, basically.
Interesting. So I think there's a couple of takeaways there for anybody looking to do sub 4, right? And this is not something that comes. Don't tell this from myself. It's not something that comes easy to you, marathon running, right? You're not one of these people who can just rock up and bust out like something. You've got to train for it, right? Like most everyday runners. And you started running later on in life, so it's one of those things that you come into. So it's not something that you did at school and all this sort of stuff, right? So just give you some context. So I think the key takeaways with coach's hat on, let's call it, is I think the bike ride was building endurance and obviously cross training. I think that was building a lot of strength into you, working on your core and through the bike and that sort of stuff. It was just working on that. So I think that was one of the positives, and it shows the benefit of doing cross training. I think the Thursday medium distance run, I know from when I used to do it with you before I had to go back to work in London, it's just a no-brainer. I mean, the 6 to 10 mile run at target pace every week is just brilliant. It's just phenomenal. And then you get a rest day, and then you go again on a weekend. And as you rightly said, doing the 16 and 18 milers with at least half of it at target pace, goal pace, whatever you want to, marathon pace, whatever you want to call it, is the defining sort of moment in your training, I think, that made the difference. At the end of those 20 miles that then took you through, so you was able to carry on because you'd built in that endurance, you'd built in that stamina, you'd built in that mental toughness that you got from doing a 20-mile bike ride, from doing 18 miles with 9 miles at target goal pace. And as you said, the 20 miler, which a lot of people hang on to as being like this amazing thing, right? It's not really. It's pure psychological. You are better off doing an 18-mile run with the majority of that at target pace or goal pace, or marathon pace, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah. That's what I was doing. That 18-mile run, a lot of them, when I look back at them, I did 3 miles easy, 3 miles hard. And in the further I got into the run, the last 2 lots of it, like the 2 rotations of the easy hard, the easy was actually probably closer to the hard. So I was actually essentially doing more like 6 miles nearly straight off and hard. So that whole run, I could have been 12 miles of goal pace in that run, do you know, which is a big portion of it.
And you was doing all of that. Your average for that whole run was under sub 4 pace anyway.
Oh, yeah. It was probably about 8:50 per mile, do you know what I mean, with the easy. Do you know?
You've done the whole 18 miles below target anyway.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, really, when you think about it, because you were training and you had trained before for a 3:45 marathon. It's just that the stars hadn't aligned for whatever reason.
When we trained for the 3:45 marathon before, I trained slower.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Which is mad. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, it's bizarre that you say you train differently. You've adjusted slightly your training. I think, like as we said, the key to your success was those 18-mile runs, and reluctantly saying it, but the biking as well. The whole mixture of that. I don't necessarily think that one thing specifically, but I think the combination of it, of all
Yeah,
of it,
definitely is a
gave,
combination of all.
yeah, and then that gave you the mental toughness. So when you did get those, we all get them, those thoughts at 20 miles, 22, 17, whenever it comes, you was just like, oh, whatever, I've got another 3 mile loop to do, or I'll just, I'm well within myself here because, I'm only targeting under 4 hours. You know what I mean? It's a totally, you had a total different mindset, didn't you, on the race
Yeah,
day?
definitely,
Now
hundred
let's
percent.
get into that because I think firstly we need to talk about fueling because that's really important, and we work a lot on that on when we do our long runs, and then we'll get into the race day. So in terms of fueling, when were you fueling?
Well, I actually, for some mad reason,
Sorry, the
changed it
light
on.
bulbs. The light. Did you see the light bulbs?
Yeah, it's flickering. Some mad reason on race day, I changed it.
Oh,
Now, I don't know why I did this, but so I had 7 gels on me,
right.
and I remember I started, and for some reason I thought I'm just going to take these. I usually would take them at every 4 miles.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I thought I'm going to bring that forward slightly, and I'm going to take all 7 of these gels. So I took them at 3.5 miles. Yeah, every 3.5 miles
Wow.
religiously, and I went regular caffeine, all the way to the end.
How was
And
Mike? But let's give us some context. You're the man with the iron guts. This is the guy before the Great North Run. As tell him
sausage and what was it? Sausage and bacon roll and a steak bake.
before, like literally 40 minutes before the Great North Run. Yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, and that to be every time I've done that, I've run quite well there.
So the geezer, he has iron guts, right? He has a very, very solid constitution. Let's call it. Um.
So yeah, but
So,
I did that. Hang on, it gets worse than that. So
oh
I
no,
did
what
that,
else?
and then on course they had the Gatorade,
Right.
which I hadn't tried really prior to the run. So I just every aid station I went through, I went water of one, next one cup of Gatorade, next one water of cup of water, next one cup of Gatorade, whole way through.
Well, every aid station.
Yeah, but it was only like a paper cup. It was. So it was only
Yeah, you
like
just get like that much, didn't you?
yeah, it was an inch in there. Sometimes some of the water ones, I probably only had a quarter of it chucked it. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
mouthful done. Off you go.
But that was the fueling all the way through.
Now, so there's something for you if you're listening to this about your fueling. Ask yourself how on point are you with your fueling, because that can make a difference. Again, it's that not that bonking, but I mean, if you don't get it right, you will end up bonking. But there's a lot to this in terms of nutrition on race day that people overlook. They go, oh, I'm going to take a gel every whatever. But have you really drilled into what works for you? Because again, everybody's different. So he was going 4 miles, but actually he went 3.5 miles, and we know because we're going to come on to it in just a sec. It worked.
And
Um,
believe it or not, as well, when I ran my PB for the half marathon at Cambridge, that was at
hang on,
every
hang on.
three.
You ran your PB at Cambridge and you still gave it a 2 out of 10.
Yeah, but that's not the point.
Yeah, okay.
But anyway, I did the same thing there. I changed that to every 3.5 miles. So I took 3 gels on the half.
Yeah, I get that though because
I
you're
I
doing
don't
a
know.
training run, yeah. So it's a little bit
Yeah,
different. If you're doing a train, I think if
I
you're
ju-
doing a sort of race day mock up in your training,
yeah.
then it's worth doing the 3.5 mile or whatever you would practice on race day. But I get why you do the 4 miles. It just makes sense. I just
Mm,
wish regretting that tending, by the way. It just makes sense why, especially for us because we do it together. But the 3 mile loop because you grab your gel out of the boot, you take it, and then you're into.
yeah.
It makes sense the way it falls for us when we're doing our.
I just think maybe when you've got that harder effort, I think is a fine line between underestimating how much fuel you need and over fueling.
Yeah,
It's the limits either way are very marginal, and it can
yeah.
make
No, I think
all the
you're right.
difference.
When you're pushing, you've got to
Mm.
fuel it. It's different if you was like I did in Berlin, just cruised
Oh,
about.
totally different.
I
Totally
mean, I
different.
was like every 4 miles. I think I didn't even bother with the last one. It's like
Yeah,
but I was like religious every 4 miles. I took some of the malt and stuff. I only had one cup of that malt stuff because it was disgusting. And then that was it. I didn't bother. So anyway, I'll do the same again in New York. I won't. I'll have one every 4 miles. I'll take because I've got Gatorade. I shipped some in from the US, so I'll
mm,
have a cup of Gatorade every. other one, whatever.
That was actually all right, to be fair. That
I think
Gatorade.
the Gatorade, right, the powder.
It's not bad.
Actually, it's up there. I can't remember what it's called. But it's actually all right. The lemon and lime, it ain't too bad.
No.
It's better than that malt. That Morton stuff is just wrong. Morton, honestly, it's just overpriced. It really is. There's just absolutely no point getting that stuff. So anyway, you went to Chicago, which you targeted all year. So it goes back to that point what we always say is, which is target one race. And then you set off at what?
Well, to be honest, the GPS was shocking. I knew that from the Bobolac run the day before, and I'd worked out where I needed to be at certain points.
Clever.
And it was even down to I knew the first half hour
Yeah.
I needed to be at 3.5 miles. After an hour, 7 miles. Then
Brilliant.
I knew halfway needed to be about 150, 152 sort of thing. And then I knew the big number was get to 3 hours and be at it would just be just under 21 miles.
Wow.
So, and I knew that's where I'd be. But I was a little bit faster, as you do. You get dragged into things, you was quicker. So it averaged out for the first 30 miles. I probably ran at about 8. It was about 8:15 per mile. So I was too.
So what did you need? What did you need per mile?
Well, even though I was targeting sub 4, I said to myself, I'd go at a pace to finish. Well, so it would got to be 3:50 because I thought that builds in a little bit of time.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't want to go out at 9:09. Do you know what I mean? On 9-minute miles, get too close to, you could easily lose it. So I was too fast anyway to start with.
But did you?
But it felt fine.
It felt good, right? It looked good from everything I've seen of you.
This is the thing. I went through the first 7 miles, and it felt really easy. And I got to halfway, and it felt really easy still. And that's when, at halfway, like we'd spoke about it before, hadn't we? I said, well, I got to 14 miles, and I was just going to try and just speed up a little bit to 20 miles if I could.
Yeah, let's just mention that because you and I had a convo on Tuesday before you went out, and to try and sort of get out your own way, where you're struggling with the pacing or the timing or whatever, just to get this stuff for. I said to Si, look, at whatever it was, let's say it was 40 miles. I can't remember what I exactly said, but drop the pace, and put your foot down a fraction, and then go get the 20, and then when you get the 20. Drop it again. Just keep asking the question until the point in which you can't keep dropping it. And the reason that is because sometimes you can sort of labour. I mean, I felt that in Berlin. It's different because we wasn't pushing. But even when you're running easy, it was getting to the point where it was just labouring. And normally in a race, I would have dropped it just to basically just get the bloody thing done. But for you, it was key because I think what had happened before is you kind of mentally was hitting a wall. And we needed you to push through that. And the only way really to push through is to ask a question and to push. And you had the pace. You've always had the pace. You've had the pace since day one. Because as you say, your halftime shows it. This was purely a mental battle. So
massively.
Yeah, the key for me to give to you before you went out there was sort of cowboy up at 14 and then go keep asking the question all the way to the finish, which is basically what you did, right?
Yeah, well, I got to 14 miles. I hadn't had my headphones on for till I got to 14 miles. 14 miles, turned my headphones on, dropped the pace, dropped it. I managed to drop it to about 7. It's about 7:45. I ran that all the way through to 20 miles.
Wow!
And then I managed to do another 2 miles, and it was probably about 8:10 per mile.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got to 22 miles, I was absolutely done. But I was like, I knew I'd be under 4 hours then. Yeah. I was just like. I wasn't actually looking at the time. I didn't know what time I was going to finish in. But I was like, I just ran the last 4 miles in. And I did think to myself, this is basically 1 lap of Harton I've got to do. And I thought, we do that week in, week out. I can do the 1 lap. So I just trotted the last 4 miles in.
Wow. And that got you over the line in what?
3:42:30.
3:42:30. That's lovely, isn't it? And that, just out of interest, is that faster than Speedgoat?
Just by a few minutes.
Okay, just a few. What? quite a substantial number.
About two, I think, maybe 2.5. But I
Not that
haven't
we've
checked.
looked.
I haven't looked. No.
We haven't looked, but technically, well, not technically, factually, you are quicker than
If you want to
speed.
look, check your Strava.
Yeah, we have a go on his Strava and what was it? You said leave comments, wasn't it? What you said?
Yeah,
Yeah.
loves a comment.
So that was that. I think so. What would your advice be then? So someone listening to this, I mean, it's great because anybody who's followed your journey, essentially, we've had you on the podcast talk about hitting the wall quite openly and try to break this sub 4. And then all of a sudden, bosh, the floodgates hit and you ran a 3:42. So most people go, "Oh, I went 3:58," but you smashed the living daylights out of it. But personal note for me, he was always going to do that. It was just purely a mental thing, right? He's a quicker runner than me because he's 10 years younger. See what I did there? But but no, seriously, he's generally, I think Simon's quicker. He will be quicker than me. It was just a question of breaking that mental barrier, which is now what he's done. But what would be your tip for somebody who's training for a sub 4 and then running a sub 4? So what's a sort of training tip for sub 4?
I do think if you can do some, as much as we don't want to, some sort of cross training does help, and it does help. And if you can do it, whether it be riding a bike, I don't know, going to the gym and rowing or swimming or anything, doing something else will definitely help. And then on your long runs, you've got to try and build a lot of goal pace in there.
Yeah.
But like you've said, I wouldn't get too hung up on the 20-mile run because
it's overplayed, I think, by a lot of people. They don't get it. It's time on feet, people. It's effort, really, more than anything else. There's just little.
I could go and run a 20-mile run every other week, but if I'm doing them all really slow and making them take 3.5 hours, surely I'm better off doing an 18-mile run in about 3 hours. And getting some good pace through the run.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I did it literally just this weekend. Could have done 20 miles easy. Could have done it, but I wanted to do 18 with. I think I ended up doing 7 or 8 at target. Much better, much better. Physically, mentally, much better.
Yeah,
yeah, of course, it's meant to be tough, but puts me in better shape, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, I do think you could be running for 3.5 hours. That takes as much out of you as running for the 3 hours. I know you might be running slower, but you've run longer on your feet. You've still used another half hour's worth of body energy up, and it's not easy, is it?
What about tip for race day?
Make sure you got your fueling bang on.
Yeah,
you got to. I think the training's one thing. You've got to make sure you're well rested before. I adapted very well to the sleeping over there. That didn't really.
A surprise.
Yeah, well, I don't really have much trouble with that. And then, fueling. Make sure you fuel well the day before. Make sure you're drinking fluids and all that, I suppose. Getting all that in. But, fueling's got to be the one.
Yeah.
And I think as well, have a strategy. You need to have a good strategy and know where you need to be. Because you're not guaranteed that your watch is going to be right. So I knew where I had to be at certain times in the race and distance, and I was not using the distance on my watch. I was using the distance of the mile markers.
There we go. That's what Ben was doing. Just to give you a little tip, if you didn't know, Ben 3:21 or something stupid, wasn't it?
Something like 3:21, 3:22.
And the conversation I had with him was a similar sort of thing about dropping times, but also I told him to write the times on his wrist, what he needed to be in when, but not the distance on his watch. But I needed him to know that when he went through 10 miles on the board or the kilometers, whatever, it corresponded from what was on his watch in terms of timing and distance. So he knew the points because, as you say, the GPS is out and you've got to run the course that's there. Even if you think, the course is long, course is short, course is what it is. You've got to run the course.
To be honest, I think all I used my watch for was to know it's about 3.5 miles. I need to have a gel now. That was all I was using it for. I weren't using it for the pace, very roughly, because it was all up and over the place. But you was having to run a lot of it to feel.
Yeah, that's the other. I think the key takeaway for anyone training for a sub 4. or for any PB is to run to feel. I always say it to my runners that I coach is go out there and run to feel. You know, push when you feel like pushing, back off when you feel like you need to, and then go again. You've got to understand your body. And I think that comes from experience, which I think actually also for you and sort of finish on, which is key as well. You had a few attempts at this, which is good. I think you learned the hard way. You know, you're not like Ben who's knocked the door through every single time. It's sometimes good to come up against, you know, these hard times in terms of your running, because it helps you and the experience you get from hitting the wall, and the experience you get from maybe under fueling, and the experience you get from not doing enough of X, Y, Z in your training, then allows you to learn from that and then put that into practice. Because now your next training block, you're a totally different runner, right?
Oh yeah, and so, like you say, you're 100% correct there. I think achieving the sub 4, look, it's great whoever does it, but because I tried so many times, it meant a lot more.
Yeah.
In doing it, do you know what I mean? Because you like,
especially when you ran 4:01 in London.
Oh yeah, it's awful, isn't it? But I tell you what, as well, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was standing on that start line, and I was absolutely bricking it.
Really?
Oh, big time.
Why? Because it's just the expectation, or what?
Yeah, because I was just thinking, if I don't do it again, what is it? Yeah. Well, I actually said to Sabrina, I said we were talking about it, and I said maybe if I don't do it, maybe that is as fast as I can run on the marathon distance. Maybe that just isn't the distance for me.
Yeah, true.
And
yeah,
that
some people are better at certain distances. There's no doubt about that.
Maybe I'm more of a half marathon runner. Maybe that's better for. I don't know, but obviously can't really say that now.
Can't say that now. You proved it because you're faster than Speaker.
Oh, am I? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, better check. Yeah, just shame that, isn't it? Right, so that's it. So there we go, people. I hope that was insightful, and you learned something about the sub 4. Again, I wouldn't get caught up in worrying too much about running a sub 4 personally. I think your times will take, as I always say, your times take care of themselves. If you do a good training block and you approach it the right way and you do what you think is the right thing, and then you turn up on race day, and if it's your day, it's your day. If it's not, it's not. I mean, Simon's testaments there. He had, and I still think your training for the Amsterdam Marathon was actually better than your Chicago training block.
I think my long runs was better on the Chicago block though.
Yeah, maybe, but
I think the long runs were.
Yeah, but it's my point is that if your stars align, you put the work in, your stars align, you'll do it.
Oh yeah.
But everything will take care of itself. So don't put pressure on yourself worrying about, like you just say, oh God, what am I going to do, sort of thing. Learn from what's happened to Simon. I say he genuinely hit the wall. Right, it's well documented. Listen back to the episode, and now he's come through and he's just punched in a 3:42 at Chicago Marathon. So massive props to you. I think we need to get you back on for the Christmas rating special. I think that would be absolutely hilarious. So let us know if you want us to do that. I think that's it. Make sure you go to sketches.co.uk and get over there and smash the living daylights out of that. We are back live. When I say we, I won't be there because I'll be in New York. But the guys are back live next week. Normal service is resumed. Thank you very much, bro, for coming on and talking about this. We appreciate it. And I think that's probably about it. So I'm going to play. Where's the outro music? Here it is. Right. So just check one more time. So are you still faster than Speako?
I think I am still faster than Speako. He says he's retired, but I think he's going to have to come out of retirement.
He's going to have to cow up because basically we're both faster than him, aren't we?
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie, that probably doesn't sit well with him. Yeah.
That'll great. Right, we'll see you later. I'll play the music. Catch you later. Bye.